Coming up on No Pulp, we'll tell you if college athletes are about to cash in.
And we'll give you a report from the ever-changing college basketball bubble.
And a tribute to one of the greatest ever to step on a basketball court. That's all coming up on No Pulp. Let's get rolling.
What's up, party people?
He has finally silenced the doubters once and for all.
Small schools can jump up and beat these big teams.
That offense is going to be fantastic.
I am ready to go to battle.
Hello and welcome into No Pulp. I'm Will Scott alongside Noah Cierzan. Thanks for joining us. And Noah, the Royal Rumble was last night in Houston, and I guess some college basketball players were looking for a last-minute invitation. Let's roll the tape here. Plenty of controversy across hoops this week. Illini guard Alan Griffin for Illinois steps on Purdue's Sasha Stefanik in last week's game. Griffin was suspended 2 games by the Big Ten. Not a great look, but that's not all, folks. Let's go to Kansas State, Kansas. Final seconds of the game, and by golly, that's Sylvia de Sousa's music. He pulls a Bobby Knight and picks up a flipping chair. He gets a 12-game suspension. You can see the chair right there. David McCormick suspended 2 games. Absolute chaos in Lawrence. So my question to you is, what was worse?
I mean, for me, Alan Griffin is actually worse. He gets the lesser suspension, but he had clear intent to cause injury. And look, I know the brawl was bad, and I'm going to make a weird pitch here, but I think a fight every once in a while doesn't hurt anybody. Look, college sports and sports in general are built upon rivalries. So when you see Kansas State, another big college basketball game that tends to get violent, Cincinnati, Xavier, win those games, you know, you have a brawl every once in a while. It's not a great look for the schools, but I think it really fuels that rivalry and just gets hype up for the game.
I mean, I agree, Alan Griffin, that's just not a good look for him or Illinois, but that was a all-out brawl in Lawrence. I mean, an all-out brawl, that's just not something you see every day, especially in college basketball. I mean, you had 4 different players suspended, 4 guys, and I mean, this was just a bad look for both teams that this had to happen, and just not a great look for college basketball. But when you consider that 4 guys were suspended, including a starter, David McCormick, that's a huge loss for Kansas. I mean, it's by far Kansas State, that brawl for me.
Well, and let me be clear, I do not condone the use of a chair. That is truly something from the WWE.
Yeah.
But everything else, the extracurriculars, you know what? I like it every once in a while. So let's move over, Illinois, to number 19 in the latest edition of the AP Top 25. Kansas holds their spot at number 3, currently in position for a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. But as of now, they wouldn't be placed in the East region as the number 1 overall seed. So my question for you, Will, is if the season ended today, who are you placing atop the East region as the number 1 overall team?
I got to go with the Zags. You know this. I've been on the Zags all year. I mean, in my opinion, Gonzaga is the best team in the country. And look, Baylor, they deserve to be number 1 right now. I'll admit that. They have played a pretty tough schedule. They're in the better conference over Gonzaga. But when you look at Gonzaga's offense, I mean, come on. They're averaging 89 points per game. They're leading the nation in scoring offense. The number 2 team, Dayton, really not even close to Gonzaga in that category. For me, Baylor, if these 2 teams were to play, Baylor just would not be able to run with Gonzaga's offense. And that's why I think Gonzaga would be the better team here. Look, Baylor's defense is elite, but no one is shutting down that Gonzaga offense. And Baylor, by the way, kind of a mediocre offense. They're ranked 140 in scoring offense.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Gonzaga's a great team, and their offense looks great when they're playing Pepperdine. Well, they play in the West Coast Conference.
What is your problem with the
Baylor
West Coast
is the number
man?
1 team in the country, and let me tell you why. They have just flat out won games. Only loss taking place in Alaska. So let's just throw that game away. They go to Kansas, they win. They go to Texas Tech and win. They go to Gainesville, Florida, where they are underdogs, and they go and win. I know.
You got to admit, though, they have been kind of slipping past teams that they should probably be beating handily.
No, absolutely. They have played in some close games, and it's not always pretty, but hey, a win's a win. Gonzaga's a great team, I agree, but they're not facing great opponents right now. And Baylor, day in and day out, has been playing very tough opponents. They play in the Big 12, a very solid conference. So I got to give it to the Baylor Bears.
From Waco to Lexington, John Calipari's squad getting a big win at Texas Tech over the weekend. But they were without Khalil Whitney. The five-star freshman announced that he is leaving the program. Whether this means transferring to another school or entering the NBA draft remains to be seen. But Noah, this was a guy who just wasn't seeing the floor a whole lot. What do you think this means for Kentucky?
Well, for Kentucky, I don't think it means anything.
Yeah.
They didn't have Whitney in their last game. They go on the road to Texas Tech and beat a good Red Raiders team in a very tough environment. Look, Whitney had only played 4 minutes in the last 2 games combined. Wasn't a huge factor. So I think Kentucky will roll through this. Nick Richards ends up taking his spot, and he's now the star of this team. So I think Kentucky's going to be completely unaffected by this. Like, obviously, you don't want guys to transfer out, but I'm not worried for Kentucky at all going forward.
I'm in 100% agreement with you. I mean, this really means nothing for Kentucky. They're doing fine. They won at Texas Tech without him. I mean, he was only averaging 7 minutes a game in their last 10 games. But this brings me to a broader point about Kentucky. John Calipari is never going to win another national championship. Do you know why? Because you need senior veteran leadership in order to win a national championship in college basketball. You look at Virginia last year. You look at Baylor this year. They're ranked number 1. Gonzaga, every single year they have some veteran guys. Kentucky always has like 5 freshmen starting for them. They're never going to win a national championship again if they keep rolling through these freshmen, these one and dones.
Well, and I totally agree with you, Will, except for the fact that they have made deep tournament runs. They have made it to the Elite Eight.
It's been a little while. It's been since Anthony Davis, since Calipari won a national championship.
Maybe the Final Four, but they have made it to the Elite Eight, and they have still had great teams. So I think saying that he won't win another it might be a little bit of a stretch. But regardless, let's move on. We both think Whitney is making the right decision here. Kentucky certainly not super affected. Let's move over to another big decision that could possibly affect collegiate athletes around the country, and that's the discussion surrounding student athletes being able to make money on their business ventures. And in the annual State of College Sport, NCAA President Mark Emmert spoke on the issue, and he said, "I think there's a clear consensus that we need to get those rules changed. That, again, is making things look more like and feel more like you're a regular student." So that begs the question, Will, is this the first domino to fall in allowing players to make money?
Well, it's certainly another domino. I mean, you look back at what the NCAA Board of Governors did in October. They voted for players to potentially receive compensation in the next few years, and that was, of course, an aftermath to the Fair Pay to Play Act when Governor Gavin Newsom of California signed that into law. And then you had all these other states that were going to follow suit, and then even Congress was going to get in on this, the United States Congress. So I think that what you're going to see here in the next few years is Mark Emmert try to find a middle ground. Like, how can we obtain the amateur model that we've been preaching for so many decades and still allow players to receive money off their name and likeness? But his words the other day at the State of the College Sports Address, very significant considering this was a commissioner, or this has been a commissioner that has been so against the notion of paying players.
Well, and I think Mark Emmert finally realized that he didn't hold a super strong case, because eventually if he was going to fight the Pay to Play Act in California and other states, this was going to go to Supreme Court. It's very big legislation. And I think he realized, hey, I don't think I have a great case against them. So like you said, I think he is going to try to strike a middle ground, and it's not the first domino, but it's the first domino from Mark Emmert, and I think this might expedite the process countrywide. Obviously huge for all student athletes nationwide.
Well, when we come back, Noah and I will tell you who's in and who's out. It's Bubble Watch season. Stay with us on No Pulp.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes? B, console her?
Don't worry, sweetie. This is gonna happen a lot.
Or C, find her a new boyfriend.
Nice single boys. That was weird.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome back to No Pulp alongside Will Scott.
I was getting excited.
You're
I
not
was
me,
getting
I'm
too
me.
excited, man.
Alongside Will Scott.
I can't wait for this next segment.
I know,
Top 5
Cierzan.
conferences? Woo.
Yes. And we already looked at our #1 teams in the country, but it's time to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Maybe get a little bit of perspective on this very weird college basketball season. And we're going to start off looking at the top conferences in college basketball right now. We're going to start with you, Will. What's your top 5 college conferences this season?
You'll like this because you're a Big Ten guy, but I got to go Big Ten #1. I mean, this is a no-brainer. They lead all of college basketball with 6 ranked teams. In my opinion, Indiana should be in the top 25 as well. In Joe Lunardi's latest bracketology, get this, 11 teams in the field of 64. That's crazy. Big 12, my #2. They might get 6 or 7 teams in. Top half of that conference, fantastic. Baylor leading the way. Big East is #3 for me. ACC #4. The ACC not as strong this year, but I mean, still some really good teams in that conference. 7 or 8 teams might get into the tournament. Then I got the A10 #5. I mean, the top 6 teams in this conference, very, very impressive, all making very strong NCAA tournament cases. Dayton, the number 7 team in the country.
Yeah, I like your list. I don't totally agree with you. But up top, I'm also going to have to go with the Big Ten. Of course, I'm a Big Ten homer. And
really?
Yeah, just a little bit. The Big Ten is absolutely spectacular this year. And while they may not have the teams that are ranked the highest, they are the deepest league, the deepest conference I have seen in a very long time. They have the ability to send 12 teams to the tournament. I don't think they're going to do that, but just the fact that they do is crazy. And then #2, I have the Big East, and the Big East is back, baby. Of course, we got Butler. I know you love the Bulldogs.
Oh my gosh,
And then we also got
Butler.
Nova has been picking it up of late, but a couple dark horses. I love Seton Hall. Guess how many wins they have since they got Miles Powell back from injury?
A lot.
9 straight wins.
Wow.
For the Pirates of Seton Hall. And then also Creighton. They can really shoot the 3-ball. 3 spot, I have Big 12. I already said I love Baylor, Kansas. ACC is at 4 for me. I agree it's not that strong, but you can't ignore having Louisville, Florida State, Duke, all in the top 10. Right now, funny enough, I think Syracuse might be the 4th best team in the ACC.
Standings reflect that right now.
Which, you know, if you told me that at the beginning of the season, I would think you were crazy. And then at #5, I do not have the A10. I have the SEC.
I'm okay with that.
I'm a big believer in Kentucky. I think they're, you know, as Kentucky always does, they improve over time and they reach their peak at the end of the season. I really like the Auburn Tigers, and there's one other team.
There's another Tigers team that's doing pretty well.
I think so. They're in first place. LSU?
That would be right. The school that won the national championship in football.
Yeah, they're also half decent in basketball, so I'm going to slot in the SEC at #5.
I'm in agreement with you on the fact that LSU is the best team in the SEC.
I didn't say that. I said Kentucky.
They're the #1. They're #1 right now, though. Okay. That brings us to Bubble Watch, and we're starting with a team that was in the top 5 less than 2 months ago. Now they're on the bubble. That would be Michigan. Noah, hard to believe they're in this position right now. Did they turn it around and make the NCAA tournament?
You know, I love Juwan Howard, but I'm going to say that they don't. And it's because they're losers of 4 straight. They have not looked good, and they got a game coming up on the road at Nebraska. Nebraska, very bottom of the Big Ten, and you look at that game and you're like, this is a bounce-back game for Michigan. But guess what? Xavier Simpson, the leader of their team, is suspended 1 game for team violations. So I don't even know if they're going to be favored in that game anymore. I don't think Michigan is going to make the tournament, which is honestly crazy the way they played earlier in this season.
I mean, like you said, that's just crazy. Think about it. This was a top 5 team like 7 weeks ago, and now they're potentially out of the NCAA tournament conversation. Quite honestly, I don't even know why we're talking about it. They're 2-6 in the Big Ten. They shouldn't even be in the conversation right now. It's just so disappointing because Juwan Howard is a guy that we were all rooting for, and we're so excited to see that start that they had, winning the battle for Atlantis. But right now they're 2-6. Their schedule isn't getting any easier in a tough Big Ten. I don't think they make it. I think they're out.
No, I totally agree with you. And let's venture a bit further south, shall we? And look at a team in Memphis that started the season, of course, with massive expectations. But since James Wiseman left, they really haven't looked the same. Oh, and not to mention, they lost to Tulsa by 40 points last week, 4-0. So I ask you, Will, is Memphis going to make the tournament?
This is a very talented team that's just going through a rough patch right now. At the end of the day, I still think they get in. A reason for this rough patch is the youth. 4 freshmen, the sophomore, and the starting 5. But the deeper they go into the season, the stronger this team is going to get. Precious Atua, G.J. Jeffries and company will lead this team to the NCAA tournament. Penny Hardaway, I think, is a great coach. He's going to figure this out. I think the AAC will get 4 or 5 teams in. Memphis will be one of those teams.
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with you on this
Really?
one, Will, for the fact that
You're taking the heart away.
Yeah. I am. And it's for the fact that their freshmen haven't really improved. You look at a team like Kentucky, their freshmen improve over time. They're getting better. I haven't seen it with Memphis just last week. You know, I already said it. To Tulsa by 40 points? That's ludicrous. And then
Someone told you that Tulsa was going to win that game.
Okay, whatever. It's not time for Willie bets. But in quad 1 and quad 2 games right now, they're 3-5,
Yeah.
and that basically tells me that they're mediocre against formidable opponents. I don't think Memphis makes it in. Penny Hardaway doesn't have a ton of coaching experience yet. I still think he has a lot of room to grow, and I don't think that Memphis makes it out into the NCAA tournament.
Plenty of bubble teams in the Big Ten. Let's talk about the Gophers now. In or out, Noah? And you might be a little biased with this one.
Okay. Hands in the air. I may be a little biased, but I'm going to tell you why the Golden Gophers will make the tournament. Look, I know they don't have a super strong record, but they have 2 wins against Ohio State, a win against Penn State, a win against Michigan. They have one of the most underrated players in the country in Daniel Oturu. He's averaging 19.7 points per game, 11.3 rebounds per game. Marcus Carr, transfer from Pitt, averaging 6.9 assists per game. Look, this team is just flat out too talented to not make the tournament, and the road is not going to be super easy ahead, but the Big Ten is a tough conference. They'll have plenty of opportunities to prove themselves, and I think that they truly will, given how good this team is and how much they have improved over time.
Why are we talking about Minnesota?
Come on.
Why are we talking about Minnesota? They're 11-9. They're not a good basketball team. They're on the bubble of the NIT, not the NCAA tournament. This is ridiculous that we're talking about Minnesota. You look at their upcoming schedule. It's really tough. At Illinois, Wisconsin, at Penn State, Iowa and Indiana. They're going to go 1-4 in those 5 games. This is not a good basketball team. And you mentioned their good wins. Sure, Ohio State was in the top 10 when they beat them. Ohio State has fallen off a cliff.
They're still a tournament team.
No, they're not.
Yeah, Ohio State is not a tournament.
They're not going to make the NCAA tournament.
That's ridiculous. That's ludicrous.
They're not going to make the NCAA tournament.
That's ludicrous. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to clip this.
Please do.
I'm going to clip this from the show. I'm going to put it on Twitter. Selection Sunday. Ohio State makes a tournament, and you are going to look like a clown.
Ohio State is going to be in the NIT playing Minnesota.
All right, let's take a wrap on this discussion because that's just ridiculous. Let's move to the final team on Bubble Watch. The defending national champion Virginia Cavaliers. They lost 3 players to the NBA draft, and Tony Bennett is definitely coaching a weaker Virginia squad than he's used to. Right now, they're 5-4 in the ACC. So I ask you once again for the final time, Will, does Virginia make the tournament?
Never underestimate Tony Bennett. He's one of the greatest coaches in college basketball.
He's really good looking.
You have a man crush on Tony Bennett. Okay. So when you look at Tony Bennett, not his looks, but just the way he coaches, he's all about defense. This team still has the best defense in the entire country, averaging 50 points a game, giving up 50 points a game. So for me, when you look down the stretch for this Virginia team, their schedule is not that brutal. They play 4 more ranked teams. 3 of those come at home. They're going to have some really good opportunities to pick up some big wins. Their defense is going to lead the way for them. Their offense, not great. But if their offense can get better, start shooting the basketball better, I think this will be a Virginia team comfortably in the NCAA tournament, maybe as a 7 or 8 seed.
All right, I'm also going to have them in, and I totally agree with you. It's all about the coaching. Tony Bennett, he knows how to run a defense right now. Virginia's ranked as 2nd in defensive efficiency for KenPom, and they don't have a ton of great players, but they do have Kihei Clark. They do have Mamadi Diakite, and I do think that they will end up making the tournament.
Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens. That's all we got for Bubble Watch today. But don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we'll be joined by a college football expert. We'll go toe-to-toe. Matt Bonaparte, Noah Cierzan. We'll be back in 90 seconds.
Well, Thomas, you've got pre-diabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have pre-diabetes. Big time.
They told me a bottle couldn't dream. That I would never become a superhero. But I learned how to fly. Just to come back in a new disguise. And be the hero that I've always wanted to be.
What are you, superheroes?
Just four brothers who hate bullies and love this city. Gear up, guys.
Welcome back to No Pulp. I'm Will Scott. He's Noah Cierzan. And I need to stop calling you special guest. You're just a regular at this point. Matt Bonaparte joins the show once again. Happy to have you. And you two are going to go toe-to-toe. You know the drill. Whoever gets the most points will win this debate. I'll introduce a topic and award a point to whoever I think has the best argument. So let's start with the first topic. The Senior Bowl happened this past weekend. Joe Burrow missing the festivities. That's why Justin Herbert won MVP, obviously, because Joe Burrow wasn't playing.
Thank you very much.
Does the Senior Bowl matter? Noah, let's start with you.
All right, you misspoke a little bit there. You said Joe Burrow missed the Senior Bowl. No, he chose not to participate in it because the Senior Bowl does not matter at all. Look, if it mattered, you'd see the Joe Burrows of the world playing it and just light it up, and it would explode his draft stock. But no, it's just another time when players can get injured. Maybe if you were like
injured.
Yes, it's a football game. You get injured in football games. All I'm saying, it's another opportunity to get injured. And if you are actually good at football, you don't need to go with it. It's just a bunch of bums running around. It's a bunch of bums running around trying to.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Trying to improve their draft stock. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. You said you mentioned your huge point was about how Joe Burrow missed out. He skipped it because he wanted to leave. Yeah, sure. But for guys like the guy who won MVP, you mentioned Justin Herbert, it's a huge opportunity. He played so well. 9 for 12, 83 yards and a touchdown. He might have played himself in front of Tua in the draft. It was an absolutely incredible performance. People won't stop talking about it. It's absolutely something that matters in the college football landscape.
Your bunch of bums comment just kind of turned me off a little bit. I'm going to hand this off to Matt Bonaparte. Matt leads 1-0. And familiar name headlines our next topic. Former North Carolina coach Larry Fedora hired as Baylor's offensive coordinator, Sikkim Bears. New Bears head coach Dave Aranda gets his guy. Matt, is this a good hire?
No, it's not a good hire, man. Like, come on. He's only been able to achieve 10
He was pretty
wins.
decent at UNC.
But, like, was he? He only got 10 wins one time.
That's decent.
It's really not. I mean, he only won 3 out of his 8 bowl games in his career. There's no reason a guy like this should be given a shot with a team like Baylor, who just lost their head coach to the NFL. It's an up-and-coming team. They played really well last year, top 15 where they ended up in the AP poll. This guy is a bum, like you.
Shots fired.
And there's no reason he should be here.
All right. I'm big into fedoras as the hat. I'm also going to be big in fedoras in terms of this coaching hire. Look, he runs that spread offense. He brings that, and Charlie Brewer is going to thrive at Baylor in that spread offense. And he was an offensive analyst for Texas this season, and you saw what they did in their bowl game. They erupted, looked fantastic. Love this hire for Baylor.
I'm going to give the point to you. I agree. Larry, it's not like they're hiring him as the head coach.
I know they're not hiring him as the head coach, but I mean, OC's a pretty important job. And when you got a guy who's showing me year in, year out he's not doing it, I'm not doing it.
It's 1-1, and oh man, I'm excited about this finale. LSU has hired Bo Pelini as their new defensive coordinator, who's been the head coach at Youngstown State. He's back on the Bayou where he was the defensive coordinator of that 2007 national championship team. Noah, is this a good hire for Coach O?
Absolutely. Look, LSU loses their guy to Baylor, and it's like, who are they going to get? They go out and get a guy that had 9-win seasons every year at Nebraska, went 67-27. When you can get a guy that had that experience as a head coach, he's only going to be great as a coordinator.
Yeah, he won a lot of games, but why did he get fired? The AC said, because he doesn't win the big games. This guy is past his prime. Joe Burrow and Grant Delpit are gone. The superstars aren't there for LSU anymore. That means they're going to struggle next year. So what did LSU do? They said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go and we're going to get the guy who was defensive coordinator back in 2007. We went to the championship game. And they're hoodwinking the fans, Will Scott. LSU is hoodwinking their fans. LSU is going to struggle next year. They brought back a familiar face who got you a championship. It's just not going to happen.
You said Bo
hire.
Pelini can't win the big games. He did.
That's not what I said. That's what the AC.
He said 2007 national championship.
And where's Nebraska now? Where's Nebraska now?
Noah is the winner.
That's just.
I'm sorry,
Bo
my
Pelini,
king.
Don't you be a meanie. As we will we will finish up the show. We come back. Noah and I will discuss some of the big games and give a tribute to Kobe Bryant. Stay with us.
Got a quarter?
Here we go. We're gonna go out there in the rain. You're gonna get wet. All right, here we go. Go, okay, quick. Oh yeah, yes. So much fun. Mwah.
Welcome back into the Citrus TV studio alongside Will Scott. I'm Noah Cierzan. We're almost out of time today, but we would be remiss to not honor the late, great Kobe Bryant. We'll start with you, Will.
Well, as you all know, I mean, this is a college sports show, but Noah and I wanted to close the show tonight talking about an athlete who never even put on a college jersey, but yet has had such a profound impact on so many that have. Kobe Bryant went straight from Lower Merion High School to the NBA. He made his professional debut at age 18, 33,643 points, 18 All-Star games, 5 championships later. He stepped off the court as one of the greatest to ever do it.
Bryant's impact on basketball is immeasurable. On the court, he was known by his killer pseudonym, the Black Mamba, while off the court, he was known as one of the most caring friends, mentors, and most importantly, fathers to all who knew him. The entire sporting world mourned his death.
He'll be missed for sure and never forgotten. As we will finish things out here on No Pulp. Thanks for joining us. Take care. We'll see you next time. And make sure to stay tuned for next week.